Father Hans Zollner is an expert in the sex abuse crisis in the Catholic Church. A psychologist by training, he's been studying the phenomenon of sex abuse within the Church for 30 years. He's also a member of the Pontifical Commission for the Protection of Minors. In this interview, Father Hans Zollner speaks to EWTN's Colm Flynn about some of the findings from his research into the abuse crisis in the Church.
Father Hans Zollner, it's a pleasure to meet you and thank you very much for your time. When we look at abuse within the Catholic Church, from your studies over the decades, why did it happen and what allowed it, do you think, to continue to happen? What were some of the main factors?
Now, abuse happens when people are in positions of power and they exercise that power by means of any kind of violence. And in our case, if we talk about sexual abuse against minors, it is sexual violence. So for whatever reason, and there are many, clergy and non-clergy abuse their power, abuse the trust with which people encounter them, children, youth, and their parents and their friends and their teachers, and they abuse sexually, they satisfy their own sexual desires, but also other desires like closeness, like feeling important in other person's lives, like dominating others.
From your studies, you discovered that the average age of a priest who abuses is 39. Why that age, do you think?
People come into positions of power and they are at the same time also somehow empty or growing empty in their own spirituality, in their own rootedness in their ministry. They get fed up, they are frustrated because life is approaching, and they are looking for their satisfaction. And one reason why they abuse is that with minors of age, you think you will get away with it easily, you can threaten them, you can dominate them, you can exercise your power more easily than with an adult person. And so one of the reasons is that you can abuse of them in a way that you think you will not be discovered so easily.
You think that you're untouchable?
And this is one of the things that is connected also with the culture in the Catholic Church, that priests have been considered untouchable and still are in some areas of the world like that.
If a priest in confession tells another priest that they have abused, is that priest then obliged to tell authorities, tell their superior, someone in the church, or still the seal of confession cannot be breached?
Now, the official position of the Catholic Church is that the seal of confession can never be breached, never, ever. And this is something that has been upheld over the last years also in new declarations also by the respective dicasteries here in Rome. There is certainly the possibility that the priest who receives that confession from an abusive priest who confesses to that abuse, that he does not give the absolution. Because a priest is not obliged to give the absolution in the case that one of the essential elements of a valid confession is missing. And one of these elements would be sincere repentance, clear confession, and the willingness to make up for the harm done. That could include, of course, reporting oneself to police.
When we look at the victims and the survivors all over the world, how can the Church right the wrong that has been done?
For this, we need to ask them. And this is the most important lesson that we as a Church need to learn, that we cannot impose anything, that we need first and foremost to receive the message. We need to learn is no single abused person, no single survivor, no single affected person is living the same experience.
When we look to the future of the Catholic Church, where do you see the hope when it comes to this crisis?
One element of hope that I lived through recently was when I met a survivor of clerical sexual abuse. He was abused by a priest when he was young. Now he himself has children. And he told me, and this is a person from the United States, he told me that he sends his children to Catholic schools today. Why? Because he knows, he said, I quote, he knows that his children are safer in this Catholic school than in any other institution in the United States at this point. So the hope is that safeguarding measures work.
Father Hans Zollner from the Gregorian University and the Pontifical Mission for the Protection of Minors, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.